This week on HomeKit News, the SwitchBot Hub 2 with Matter. So we have a new hub from SwitchBot, but of course hubs aren't terribly exciting without something to go with them, so SwitchBot kindly provided their Curtain Motor 2 to test it out with. Okay, so let's start with the main attraction first, shall we? So this is a new hub, hence the number 2 in the name, and as expected it works with Amazon, Google, Siri Shortcuts, IFTTT and SmartThings, but it'll also work with HomeKit once it's updated to Matter. You also get voice control with most of these platforms, including Siri shortcut options if you prefer. Many of SwitchBot's existing Bluetooth devices will not only work with this hub but will eventually get exposed to HomeKit too, although at present it's limited to only a few devices. This is good news for existing SwitchBot users, of course. And lastly, in addition to being a hub, it does have a few extras like 3 separate sensors, an IR blaster and more, which we'll look at shortly. Okay, what's in the box? So you get the hub itself, you get a user manual in English only, a quite long USB cable for power, along with a USB power brick, and finally some additional stickers for the hub and the separate sensor. Let's have a closer look at the hub now, and it's quite small at a little over 3 inches in height, but it's almost all display as you can see here. The screen is nice to the touch with a matte plastic feel, but it is really light. Around the back is a kickstand so it can be placed on a table or shelf like so, and underneath the stand is a USB-C power port to power the hub, along with a small rubber foot to keep it from sliding around. If you want to wall mount it, you can use the provided sticker like so. The unit uses USB-C, but interestingly the USB cable comes complete with a temperature and humidity sensor. As this is separate from the hub, any potential heat generated from the hub shouldn't affect the sensor's readings, which is a good thing. The display on the unit shows the readings for the sensors, with the temperature being the main one in the middle. There's an indicator light to let you know when there's activity, and there's also a built-in light sensor that works with the display. At the bottom are 2 scene buttons that allow you to control scenes connected to devices. Now these only work with the SwitchBot app and therefore only work with their own devices. These buttons only require the lightest of touch, which is just as well as the hub is so light it could easily fall over from a more forceful tap. By default these turn the display on and off, but in the app you get a few nice options to control what is seen and how. As for the sensors, you can also get visual and push alerts when the temperature or humidity readings reach unacceptable levels. One thing you don't see too often is the ability to calibrate these 2 main sensors. I've already added the hub to the SwitchBot app, so to get it working with HomeKit I first need to update the firmware for Matter support, which is thankfully a straightforward task. I've edited the procedure here, but it doesn't take more than a couple of minutes. Once updated, it provides you with a Matter code and a number you can copy to the clipboard. You do need to get the hub into pairing mode though before you attempt to add it to HomeKit. In the Home app, I'm just going to paste the code I copied from the app. It did take a while to find the device, but it did it first time, I'm happy to say. Once it's added, the 2 sensors will also show up, so you just need to set those up in the Home app too. Whilst temperature and humidity are exposed to HomeKit, the light sensor is not, but that's okay. Just to make sure that the hub is now in HomeKit, you can see the 2 sensors show up in the test room where I've placed the hub. And if we go into Hubs and Bridges, you can see the Hub 2 is also listed. You can also see that as this is a Matter device, there's also a pairing mode option in the menu. Briefly onto the device I'll be connecting to the hub, namely the Curtain Motor 2. I'm not going to do a full review of this as there are already many out there, but it works with all the same ecosystems, and once set up through the hub, it'll also work with HomeKit. It offers the same kind of features you'd expect of any retrofit curtain motor, and this is the rod version, so it's suitable for rods between 15 and 40 mm in diameter. This is a Bluetooth device, so it has to connect to the hub if you want HomeKit functionality. Bluetooth is not great, but it is what it is. As for the motor itself, whilst I'm not so keen on the look compared to the Aqara version, it is undeniably well put together. The 2 arms that hold onto the top of the rod use a spring mechanism to help them clamp onto the rod, whilst the rubber wheel connected to the motor pulls the whole unit along the rod itself. The built-in battery can be recharged via a USB-C port, and should last around 8 months between charges, although you can also buy a solar panel to keep it permanently powered. The arms are detachable to make installation easier, so all in all, these have left a better impression on me than I expected. Let's see if they perform well though. I've already added the motor to the hub via the SwitchBot app, so it automatically appears in the Home app after a few seconds. It'll appear in the same room as the hub initially, so I'll just move this one to the bedroom where I'll be testing it. If we go into the settings, you can also see that it's connected to the hub too, just in case there was any doubt. The hub has 2 scene buttons, as I've mentioned before, so I've set them to close and open the motor, all done within the SwitchBot app. As you can see, it works fine, although compared to doing it in the Home app or even via Siri, it's actually slightly slower to respond, which is a bit of a surprise. Nevertheless, it's only a matter of an extra second here or there, but I imagine most people will automate the curtain motors, so these buttons can be used for times outside of regular automations. The hub has an IR blaster, and although there aren't too many devices that use infrared in my house these days, I'm going to set it up to control my aging bedroom TV. So if you're familiar with the process, it simply requires telling the app the type of device it'll control, then determine the model from the test signals you send from the original device's remote. After that, it's a case of placing it in a room within the SwitchBot app, and then you get a user interface to control the TV or whatever device you're controlling. One thing to note is that the app couldn't control my Apple TV for some reason, but that's okay. Now these IR controlled devices are not exposed to HomeKit, but you can still control them with Siri Shortcuts. So as you can see here, it works as normal. Finally, to the pros and cons, and top of the list is Matter, as this is the way it'll connect to HomeKit. But it's also good to note that while SwitchBot works with other platforms, using Matter enables local control as opposed to cloud-based control, so Matter is important to non-HomeKit users too. Another pro is that this is more than just a hub, giving you a reasonably large display for the sensors, as well as 2 scene buttons to control your other SwitchBot devices. The built-in IR blaster is going to be of use to those that don't already have a separate device that offers this kind of control, so that's another plus. The next point is not exactly a negative, but I really want to see the back of Bluetooth when it comes to being used as a connectivity standard in smart homes. But if you already have SwitchBot devices, then this does indeed breathe new life into those devices by bringing them into HomeKit without the need for things like HomeBridge. I do think it's a little overpriced, and it does feel just okay in terms of build quality, but once again, for current SwitchBot users, it's probably worth buying. The one negative I think can be fixed is that there seems to be no way to schedule the display to turn on or off, so you have to do this within the app, which seems like an obvious thing to have included. Other than that, the experience of controlling Bluetooth devices again hasn't been as bad as I was expecting, but I'm not sure it's worth getting into if you don't already have any SwitchBot devices. But that's your call, of course. So that's our overview of the SwitchBot Hub 2 with Matter. If there's anything I've not covered or you have any other questions, drop them in the comments section below and I'll get back to you. So please like, share and subscribe if you haven't already. And in the meantime, stay safe and ask yourself this: if vampires can't see their own reflection in the mirror, why are they always so well dressed?